Just because it's the hardest paper you have encountered doesn't make it a good paper. In fact, this is one of the most meaningless paper I had to review. Find out why in today's episode of PPR. Alright, welcome back to another video. This is Yao from Vantage Tutor, a class above the rest. And for today's Prelim Paper review, it's a fan submission, and he's been asking me to review this paper for the longest of time. It is from 2023 Anderson Secondary School A Math Paper 2. Now before I go into the details, not many questions here are really worth your time, but if you really want me to squeeze a couple out, this few will be it. And for the students who like to download this paper, you are invited to join my Telegram channel where I've uploaded a short summary with a download link on my blog. Have a go at it, let me know how you did. Honestly, I'm a bit reluctant to review this paper, but because it's a fan submission and he wants to know what I think about it, and I feel I can share a lot about what you want to look out for in a prelim paper, I've decided to do this. But to be frank, point blank, this is one of the most meaningless paper that I've ever had to review. Why? Let's find out via my 3 matrices. Number 1, relevance. Number 2, insightfulness. Number 3, difficulty. Before I give an overall score and recommend to you the type of students who should try this paper. And of course, if I had a student who had to sit for this paper under exam condition, what would be a fair expectation of him from me in order for him to score an A in his actual O-levels? Firstly, relevance. I find it very hard to imagine all these questions coming out for your O-levels. And that's not just how the questions are, it's also the skills required of you and the answers required of you in this set of paper. In fact, if you have watched the Serangoon Gardens Secondary School A Math Prelim Paper review, you will find that there are very similar elements between these two papers. But what separates this paper from the Serangoon Gardens version of it is that they try a bit too hard. Like I said in the Serangoon Gardens paper, I can imagine many of the questions coming out for your O-levels where the examiner just wants to stretch you one step further. But believe me, this paper is 3 to 4 steps further. And actually all of these 3 to 4 steps further are not going to help you that much. But more about that for the insightfulness later. Beyond that, some of the questions are just plain odd. It's not that you cannot solve them, you can, but they try to combine a lot of different elements from different parts of the chapter until it comes together to formulate a paper that is really a math paper, but not necessarily an A math paper. Because if you had done your due diligence, you will know that most A math papers are repetitive, if not a small twist a step further. However, those questions do not go out of context. They do not feel like a question that's completely alien to you in such a way that you can sense that this is not going to happen in your O-levels. And this paper has done that multiple times, especially in the trigonometry question. And hence, the relevance of this paper, as much as it may not be closely modeled to your O-levels, there are still some parts of the paper, there are still some questions in the paper that I feel is relevant to you. And in fact, this is more relevant than the 2021 version. And hence, the relevance of this paper will be given a rather moderate 3.5 out of 10. Next, insightfulness. Is there a lot for you to learn from in this paper? Yes. Is there a lot of useful skills that you can learn from by doing this paper? Not necessarily. There are other papers out there that could give you the same insights without making you go through such pain. And you will know if you are one of my long-term follower of my Prelim Paper review. You compare this paper to the Serangoon Gardens Secondary School paper, there are overlapping elements in terms of the skills they want to impart to you. However, if you compare the Serangoon Gardens paper to this paper, you can see that even though the skills are the same, the numbers are way easier to manipulate and they do not make you go through so much trouble even though you can see right through the skill required of you. For example, some of the differentiation skills required of you in this paper, it's highly recommended that you apply your logarithm. But in the Serangoon Gardens paper, you just have to split the 2 logarithm up into plus. But in this paper, not only do you have to bring down the power half, you also have to split it up in terms of the minus sign. And that's where it is so irritating. You have to deal with numbers that are not necessarily the nicest. You have to deal with the negative sign. And I can understand and empathize if this happens once or twice. But this happens consistently throughout the paper. And that's where I cannot agree with. For example, a partial fraction, you want them to do long division, it could have been x squared over x squared. But instead, in this paper, it's x cubed over x cubed. You can see it would have required the same skill out of a student, but now you have to do more. So what's the point of setting the questions to be in this manner? If the learning point and the outcome is going to be the same, it's just going to make the question more tedious, and hence I find a lot of these questions rather meaningless. If they were to take a step back instead of taking 1 or 2 steps further, this would have been an amazing paper similar to that of the Serangoon Gardens. And hence the insightfulness of this paper is not completely void of learning points, but a lot of them feels frivolous because of the extra step. Hence, it will be given a score of 6.5 out of 10. Next, difficulty. This I also have a lot to say. Like I said just now, this paper could have given you the same insight, but they pushed it a step further until it looks frivolous, until the answers will appear as ugly to a lot of students and they will second guess themselves. Even though it's the same skills required, you have to spend more time to deal with it because of higher power, because of the negative sign, because of the fraction. So many ways to try to trip you up over stupid little things that generally do not matter in the grand scheme of things. It feels like this paper is just trying to make students go through hell and not necessarily help them learn something from the paper and make them better. Yes, maybe if you make some questions a bit more tedious, give the students a bit more workings to do so that they are more mindful of careless mistakes, that would definitely improve their chances for the O-levels. But this occurs consistently throughout the paper. In other words, you may have been the most prepared of students, but this paper would have worn you out such that you start to second guess yourself, you start to second guess the revision you have done, and you're just going to find it very tiring to finish this paper. And believe me, I felt tired just by looking through this paper. Hence, this paper is difficult, not just in terms of the questions asked, but also because of the manipulation required of you to get to the answer, and of course, just wearing you down eventually as you go through the paper. And therefore, this is an incredibly unfair paper. The difficulty will be given easily 10 out of 10. Overall, not the best paper. In fact, I think this is a completely meaningless paper. I don't think students who have done this paper will find a lot of value in doing them. I don't think even the students who failed this paper will be intimidated at all, because I'm sure if you have done your due diligence and you fail, you will be able to critically analyze the paper and find out that a lot of the questions are just unnecessarily difficult and they are really drifting very far what you would expect to see in your O-levels. Yes, there are learning points, and some of the questions here are really indeed quite interesting, but the majority of the paper just pushes a student too far out and requires too much effort out of a student, such that even though you may have been the most prepared, time management will clearly be an issue for you. And there are some questions that I enjoy, but really, the tedious and frivolous and potentially unnecessary questions just forms up too substantial of the paper, such that it overshadows what the true insightful questions are trying to bring to the table. And hence the overall of this paper, I will have to give it a slightly below average 4 out of 10. And of course, if I had a student who had to sit for this paper under exam condition, honestly, I wouldn't have cared if he failed. A fair expectation of him would be 50% in order for him to score an A in his actual O-levels. And finally, who would I recommend this paper to? Absolutely no one. If you want to try this paper, please have a look. I'm sure you'll feel the way that I did, which is fatigue and just annoyance. If you can see the questions as I do, chances are you have done your revision or you are very experienced. You know what are the things that we are looking out for in an O-level A math paper. And this paper has elements of that, but really far too few of them. There are questions that I have highlighted that I feel are indeed insightful and worth your time to try, but they are really for the cream of the crop students. Or simply they have done so many prelim papers that they do not see value in doing other prelim papers anymore because of patterns that they have recognized, and they just wanted something new, something so far out that they can be challenged in a different way. And hence, if you are a student who is clearly scoring an A for your O-level A math already, and you want to pick out questions individually to try to expand your horizon, this paper could be for you. Alright, so we have come to the end of this prelim paper review of 2023 Anderson Secondary School A Math Paper 2. Now, if you like what I'm doing, follow me on TikTok, like my video, comment, and share it with your friends. I'm sure this will help them. because ultimately, I'm on my way to 10,000 followers. And if you would like to try this paper, which I do not recommend, you are invited to join my Telegram channel where I've attached a short summary along with a download link on my blog. Have a go at it, let me know how you did. Nothing else. This is Yao Le from Vantage Tutor, a class above the rest. Take care.